Hello, everyone. I just kind of launched a poll there, so if you have a chance to enter any information, that'd be great. Thank you, everyone, for joining our Breaking Down Racial Barriers Roundtable discussion, Episode 8. My name is Sam Rayner, and I am the Industry Development and Membership Coordinator for the Canadian Independent Music Association, CIMA. First of all, this series is on a national platform and with a national audience. And with deep respect, we would like to honor and acknowledge the land we are meeting on is traditional territory of many nations across Canada. Now, to give a bit of information about CIMA, we are a national trade association, and we are here to represent the interests of the Canadian independent industry. And our members consist of businesses from all across Canada, such as independent record labels, managers, publishers, recording studios, and anybody else in the independent industry or in that world, and that includes artists who represent themselves or have their own company. CIMA also represents the industry in a handful of ways. So we advocate for the industry, we create export opportunities, and we host professional development sessions like these. And as a first step to a long road towards establishing an equitable and inclusive industry, this series has been designed for everyone. So businesses, artists, and music industry associations like CIMA to listen to and to learn from the lived experiences of Black working professionals we work with every day. And BDRB is a CIMA project in joint partnership with Ian and Click, and they have worked tirelessly on programming and ensuring the format of these conversations address many different intersections of identity, and we could not have done it without them. So thank you so much for Ian and Click, and a big thanks to CIMA's administrative coordinator, Matthew Baidu, for his assistance on the entire series. And we would like to also acknowledge the funding support of the Government of Canada, Factor, and Ontario Creates. We also have advanced supporting all these 10 episodes as well. And speaking of each episode, every week we have an episode partner to listen to the conversation as well as to promote the discussions. And for episode 8 is a very large list because it's such a great conversation and subject, and we wanted so many of these organizations to be a part of this. So starting off, we have Alberta Music, Manitoba Music, Music BC, Music Ontario, Music PEI, Music Nova Scotia, Music New Brunswick, the Guild of the Guild of Music Supervisors, Music Managers Forum Canada, and Working Culture. And now I'd like to pass it on to Click.
Thanks, Sam. Excuse me. Thank you very much. My name's David Cox. Many know me as Click. Being in the music business for eons, for many years, 20 plus years as an artist, promoter, A&R, manager, wore many hats. Today's discussion and overall, all these roundtable discussions have come together by the support of Advance. Advance is the newly formed Black Music Professionals Collective. It's an organization put there to help advocate and shed a light on helping bring more Black professionals into the business. And if you don't know about them, check them out. Sign up at advancemusic.org. This whole roundtable series, I can't believe this is like we're coming to the end of almost 10 with my good friend Ian here, who we worked really hard, and I'm really proud of what we've done so far. But I'm super excited for today's conversation, mainly because when I came up in the industry, we did not really have people, organizations, even community centers, other people to lean on in my era to get any type of mentorship. It was very hard to, learn the ins and outs of the music business. I remember talking to, friends like Farley Flex or Ivan Barry and gentlemen like that, and them being like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure it out myself. But when I started working for Universal many years ago, I made it a mandate that I would go out of my way to help out anybody I can, even if it's not signing them, at least showing them some education, some information that helped them grow in their careers. So today's conversation is something that's being talked about throughout all the weeks, is the importance of mentorship and education. So I'm going to pass it off to my good friend Ian here, and we're going to get this conversation started.
Okay, I am Ian Andre Espinay, and I am the co-producer, curator of the Breaking Down Racial Barriers series. This is a roundtable discussion on anti-Black racism in the music industry. Over the last 7 weeks, as Click has said, we've discussed economics, the media space, creatives, artists, the live music space, and organizations such as record labels, digital streaming, and community organizations. Today, we will turn for our 8th episode, 8 episodes, it's crazy. We'll turn our conversation to retention and succession, and we'll discuss the creation of the next generation of Black music professionals. I would like our guests to join us.
Please turn your cameras on.
So I can introduce you guys. Hello, hello. Hello, beautiful Black people.
Yes. Please turn your mics on too.
Greetings, greetings.
Hello, good afternoon. So I would like to start by introducing, I will go with ladies first. Jamelia, please tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Jamelia Campbell, born and raised in Toronto, and I'm a publicist at Sony Music Canada.
Alika.
Hi folks, I'm Alika Hall. I'm the Executive Director of NIA Center for the Arts, which is a Black arts organization based in Toronto. We're building Canada's first professional multicultural arts center that's dedicated to Black.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Rich Kid.
Hey, I'm Rich Kid. I'm a Juno award-winning musician, record producer, also a social worker. I work as a program coordinator at the Remix Project.
Okay, let's go to Montreal.
Greetings, how you doing? It's Steven Ziplock Hennessy on Il Groove Garden radio show in Montreal on CKUT, also part of the Butter Babies crew back in the day, and continue doing my music in connection with my day job with work, as I work with teenagers and young kids, and I use music as part of my method.
Okay, let's
Thanks
go to
for having me.
Randell.
Hey, what's going on? My name is Randell. I'm the Executive Director of R.I.S.E Arts and Community Services, and I also work as a booking agent for our social enterprise, R.I.S.E Edutainment.
Okay, and Ebony is probably wondering why I left her for last. We are in the presence of greatness.
Oh, I didn't have a gender change. You said they were.
Yes, and it's not age before beauty this time, but we are in the presence of greatness. Ebony Rowe, legendary event producer in the space, as well as personal story around this one. I came up through the Brother to Brother program, which was a part of Each One Teach One. And so I have a personal connection to Ebony as well, not directly, but through the teachings of the elders. Ebony, please tell us about yourself.
I like long walks on the beach. And hi everyone, I am the Executive Director of PhemPhat Entertainment Group, which produces the Honey Jam nonprofit program for female artists, all genres of music, all cultures. We're turning 25, we're turning 25. Woo-hoo! So 25 years this year. We've got our concert coming up October 1st. So we provide mentoring, educational, networking, promotional opportunities, performance opportunities for artists. That's what I do.
Perfect. And of course, my partner in crime, Click.
Yes, which I already kind of introduced myself, but I will add something else to what I do is I am a teacher as well. I teach with the homie here, Rich Kid at Remix Project. I also teach at Metalworks, which is an institute for the music business. So I am also an educator.
Perfect. And I am Ian Andre Espinay. I am an entrepreneur. I own a graphic design company called Black Star Graphic Design, as well as an entertainment company of 20 years called Iconic Arts and Entertainment. And this is Breaking Down Racial Barriers. So we're going to jump right in today. As I've said, this is a conversation on anti-Black racism in the music entertainment industry. And today we're going to talk about succession. So what I want to start by asking all the panelists is if you could give examples of anti-Black racism that you've experienced coming up in the system on your route to who you are today. Let's start with Randell. Randell?
Yeah, I'm here. It's funny. I thought you. Anyways, it's all good. Yeah, I mean, some of the experiences that I've had are really around being tokenized. A lot of tokenizing, a lot of tokenization in my experience. I do a lot of work in the not-for-profit industry, and some of the experiences that I've really had are really, one, being the only person in the room, and then of course when there's a question or a comment that kind of comes that revolves around the Black community, everyone kind of turns to me. I've had that happen before a few times, and my experiences are really, I think it wasn't until after the time that I really recognized what exactly was taking place. But often in the tokenization process, it's, let's get a Black male, someone who's in the community, someone who's recognized. And I think one of the challenges that I've had specifically in the music industry when it comes to like booking talent is, there's a lot of people who aren't familiar with some of the artists that I work with. And so I understand there's a vetting process, but deeper than the vetting process is really questioning the art and really questioning the music that's going to be brought to the forefront. And I think the last thing I can share is that hasn't really sat right with me, especially in the space of, booking agencies. Reaching out to different booking agencies, being introduced to a certain booking agency, reaching out, and then not really getting a response. And I think it's really challenging having to navigate the space, just mainly because I didn't choose the skin, the skin I'm in, I didn't choose. And the work that I do really chose me. So for me to be tokenized, for me to be kind of ostracized because of it is a big challenge. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot I can share, but I think I'll just start there.
I'd like you guys to also, if possible, give experiences in your, I guess none of us are youth, but coming up from youth, the kind of things that you experienced in terms of access to mentorship as well. But let's go to JAMELIA.
I can say, I definitely experienced a lot of microaggressions, daily microaggressions. And it's so funny because they just become so normalized that it's hard to even cherry pick and find out different examples. And when you think of the question, when I think of the question anyway, it's do I experience it? I have to actually go back and sit down and think about it and unpack it, because it's just so, you just bury it because you have to bury it to get along. It's just a part of your experience in this industry and your experience being Black, point blank, quite frankly. So definitely the microaggressions on a regular basis. I don't think it hindered my ascent so far in the industry, knock on all the wood. But I definitely have to deal with it day in and day out because of the widespread nature of being a publicist. You deal with so many different types of industries and people, whether that's, car companies or, major media companies when you're going into buildings with artists doing interviews, or the radio station, or whatever that might be, booking agencies for makeup, for hair. Like, it's so widespread. So you experience people using certain language. Like, I will, hire somebody or, bring them on to a certain contract or something, and all of a sudden it's sister girl and yes ma'am and sis and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, you don't use that kind of language with my coworkers. I've never heard you speak like this. So fascinating. So those kind of things happen like all the time. And it's just something you kind of just roll off the bat because it's not a big deal. And you just kind of suck it up and just move on. So that's pretty standard, and what I'm used to and what I've been used to my entire life, pretty much, especially professionally in this industry.
Okay. Rich?
A lot of things. Definitely being involved with hip hop music, right? But especially in Canada. But I think when I was going to the Junos, I've been nominated for the Juno Award a couple times, and being in that space, especially because already knowing like the history of the Junos with rap and knowing how Cardinal Official boycotted the Junos one year, I kind of went to the Junos not really expecting to be respected, just because, traditionally in Canadian media, they don't really celebrate our hip hop culture. They don't really celebrate Maestro that much. They don't celebrate the achievements Chocolate or Cardi did that much until it gets to Drake. So, and Drake doesn't even support them anymore because he got shafted, I think, for his first year. So when I would go to the Junos, I kind of feel like the black sheep. Like, I feel like, and luckily I had other people nominated with me, so we all like shared in on we were all in on the joke. But it was like we didn't really even matter. Our award is given out on the night before the actual ceremony, so at the gala, so it's not even televised, so they don't even show, the hip hop artists, the diverseness that is coming out of Canada, all the kind of like all the urban types of music like hip hop, reggae, R&B, all of those are given out on a Saturday where nobody else in Canada can see them, only people at the gala. So that always rubbed me the wrong way. I continued going just because it's like, I always want to tell my mom, like, look, I've been doing this rap stuff. I've been nominated for an award. It always looks good. But then to get there, it's kind of like I just dress up just to kind of like put on smiles or whatever, when really I just want to go to a hotel or do the Juno Fest shows, get my money, and then fly back to Toronto,
Okay, Ziploc.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, personally, from the beginning, as whether it be a hip hop artist, just getting in the door, whether it be through a club or booking a venue, they talk to you on the phone as soon as they hear, okay, what kind of music? Oh, it's hip hop, and we've had, I mean, I know it's kind of similar in Toronto too. There'll be club owners that won't tell you directly, but basically they're saying, we really don't want black people in here, like straight up. That if it's a black crowd, if it's a rock thing, if you play the techno or this and that, that's all good. But, and especially hip hop coming up in the 90s, early 2000s, a lot of clubs weren't trying to hear that. I remember going to Toronto, and again, some of the venues we used to do stuff at would have the top of the line people, but they would have to play in some basement space. That was, it was hip hop back then, but these are kind of barriers that rock bands did not have as many, or classical music, or Celine Dion in my area, she didn't go through the same struggles as me. So, there's that. And then there's also just a lack of understanding of all culture. I mean, when you think about it, whether it be hip hop or the reggae or, even the Afrobeat and the rest of that now, all these industry people that are trying to market, shop it, and even sign the people, if you don't understand and have an appreciation for the music, you're not going to be able to do that. So then it's that, do we have people in position of power to make these changes? So, that was when I was coming up. Actually, I was right about to be signed by Universal. And again, we're working with a guy that didn't really, and he told us straight, really, I don't listen to hip hop, I don't understand, but they gave you won this competition. So you guys I gotta try to figure things out with you guys. Later on, we got passed on to Click. That was one of Click's first jobs, was dealing with us. And I was thankful. And, as a crew, we kind of said, okay, well, at least we know he knows the deal. I've seen him in parties. I've seen him in these spaces, so he understands. That was very rare. So, I also got to big up Saul Guy, another person who was in the industry from a lot of the foundation, and hip hop would not be what it is now if we didn't have at least that one man on the inside. But it took a lot, and that's a lot of pressure on one man's shoulders to carry all of us. So these are a lot of the barriers we continue to go through too.
Okay. Alika.
I think I share definitely and echo some of the points that have been made already. But I mean, building on that point specifically around our artistic traditions not being respected is so key. You see many organizations, corporations wanting to bring in artists during Black History Month exclusively, and also not wanting to pay artists. Like, oh, this is exposure. I know that's a common sort of just, industry issue, but it's particularly egregious when, you recognize that like Black artists just don't have these gigs and are not getting as much exposure. It's difficulty to get, booked into venues. And then on top of it, when you do bring people in, you don't want to properly compensate them. And I think that also stems from this undervaluing of Black artistic traditions, which we see across both funding organizations, award shows, the struggle that it was to get, our own radio stations. They're just everything at every significant juncture of an artist's career. There's just so much work that's required to actually get them in the door and paid. And so, yeah, I think for me, particularly as someone who's doing events and producing experiences, you're often working with brands who are also like, yeah, we want to bring you in, as a consultant for this specific project or as a speaker. But when it comes to actually hiring on staff, there's no rules, right? And so their team is lily white, and it's just when we need to sort of fill the diversity quota, then we get the call. So I think those are, long-term challenges that we've been grappling with that reflect just deep inequity in the system.
Okay. And Ebony, what does anti-Black racism look to you like in your experiences?
You had asked us to include some of things that happened when we were younger.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, spent a few years as a child living in Ottawa, and there was definitely not a large Black population there. So you have issues with racial slurs. When I moved to Toronto, there was a murder when I was at the mall, at Fairview Mall, and the person who shot him was a white man who said he was going to shoot the first N-word that he saw. And I heard those shots, so that could have been me. There was streaming, which happens in the education system, where Black kids would be put back. First of all, if you come over from the islands and you have an accent, they think you're then not intelligent. Even without giving you any sort of IQ test, they just make that assessment and put you back a couple of years. And then when I would go to choose my subjects, I would be choosing all advanced and honors subjects, and the guidance counselor would say, are you sure you could handle that? Basic and general would be so much easier for you. And then they don't tell you, by the way, you cannot go to university with those credits. And so that's something that we don't talk about enough. It's something that has taken away opportunities from generations, trusting the education system, not knowing that they could not achieve a degree at a university with that level. Because of my personality and that of my mother, we didn't choose the easy route. We didn't believe or trust them and said, no, I'm gonna take all advanced honors classes. I was the only Black person in all of my classes at a school that was maybe half Black kids. So there's that. In my life, in what I'm doing with Honey Jam, when I would go looking for sponsorship, say from a brand, I had someone who does sponsorship solicitation say to me, don't take it personally, but what you're doing is too Black. So I didn't really take a whole lot of offense. I was a bit jarred, but I liked the honesty. But I thought about it, and I thought about, let's say, a brand like L'Oreal. This is decades ago. So there wasn't that appreciation of diversity where all of the cosmetic brands want to be seen as catering to everyone. So you've got these kind of lily white brands and who their target demographic is, and that's who it is, right? That's who they want to market to. And the perception was that whoever the people who followed us would not be their target. Then in terms of booking shows, when Honey Jam first started, it came out of hip hop. It was all about women in hip hop. And so challenges in booking venues because of violence, their perception that there would be violence, their perception that the people would not drink as much alcohol, which is not untrue. Their bar sales are not as high as if it was a rock show. Those are just facts. But I remember there was a particular manager who used to manage Lee's Palace, who actually referred to the Black hip hop audience as cretins. He actually said it. He may even have put it in an email. So that was pretty shocking. So those are some of my experiences, but I must say that I have experienced a whole lot more sexism in the industry, which is another show.
Okay, so ironically, the bar sales in the Black community are substantially higher than they were when you started. We have the top 3 highest records for Cool House and Rebel in 2020, like to this date now. So we've come around in that category, but yeah. So, you know, this whole conversation is about succession and how to bring the next generation of Black people into the industry. Jamelia, you are a publicist at Sony. How many publicists or people have you seen that look like you in the industry?
In that the professional music, at like the major labels, 3 big majors, none up until this quarantine where there was a recent hire at one of them. I was like, oh, hi, for the first time. And I've been there for almost 5 years. So I haven't seen any publicists at the label side really that look like me. I haven't had any so no Black publicists to mentor me or after me up until, you know, quarantine that I just said. And then just outside of just like the label part, but just like, you know, being backstage at the Junos or, you know, MMVAs or whatever it might be, very few and far between, 1, maybe 2, like, and it's just like a high maybe, like it's just like they don't exist. I have lots of wonderful white counterparts, but when it comes to Black representation, male or female, it's scarce if it doesn't really exist.
Alika, on your en route to where you are today, what examples did you have of people who looked like you doing the things that you wanted to do?
I mean, I would say, you know, Black people persist in spaces and create spaces where they're locked out. And so, you know, I could see folks doing work and, you know, carving out spaces, whether it be events or showcases. You know, shout out to Ebony for being around for 25 years. I've been seeing Honey Jam and going there, but it's always at proximity, right? We don't have any formal structures that are able to intentionally support, develop, and recruit the next generation of leaders. And so really you only learn by seeing other people and not actually intentionally learning about their, you know, challenges and failures and barriers and being able to be mentored specifically. So, you know, I think I've definitely have benefited from seeing, you know, leaders in different arenas, in, you know, community arts organizing, you know, in industry, but I think there's a significant gap in that you see those folks doing what they're doing, but there's not actually a way to connect those who are more established to those who are emerging or have an interest. And what we see, I think it's actually most prevalent in the music industry is like people who have an interest or passion for music, but don't know how to get into it, right? Like I think all artists across disciplines are isolated. They're you know, making music or they're making art in isolated to themselves. And we don't have a lot of ways to like bring folks together. But particularly I think in music for those who want to be either artists, managers, publicists, it's just like you have to figure it all out by yourself. And that's really a huge part of the problem.
Okay. Rich, one of the things that we've been talking about and that Alika alluded to is the absence of Black people across the pipeline. We have a lot of artists, we have a lot of producers, but you know, JAMELIA is the only Black publicist at a major, well, recent ad at a major label. Do we have people in publishing, et cetera, et cetera? How many people did you see that you could look to for mentorship in terms of business or creating a studio space or learning to write grants or finance or anything of that sort?
Well, in terms of like just in the music game, luckily, like you do see some diversity from the artist side and the independent side. Like my publicist was white. My manager was Black. You know, my boy who handled the day-to-day was Black. So it was like we had a pretty kind of diverse team. Or actually he was he's Asian, sorry. So we had a pretty kind of diverse team, kind of looked like Captain Planet and the Planeteers whenever we walked into places and stuff like that. But in terms of like when it came to trying to look for a bigger publicist to get our stuff in the States, we teamed up with this dude from Montreal, a white dude named Morgan, and he was very familiar with just the culture and music. He'd done publicizing for Joey Badass and Azalea Banks at that time. So it was like we figured like if we're gonna get with a publicist, even if we can't find someone that's like, you know, ethnic or Black, we can still find someone that cares about the art, that's within the world and is careful with it. Doesn't really like their intention is just to put out good music and support good music instead of just like profiting off of us. So he was a good dude, and we stuck with him for 2 or 3 years. But you know, the higher you get in different spaces, the less Black people you see. It was kind of obvious, like going to label meetings, meeting certain A&Rs at labels in Canada, because like, I don't know, you know, my cousin Quest, who is I guess on a couple episodes before, he just got hired as the newest A&R at Warner, and apparently they haven't had a Black urban or a Black A&R in the urban department for however long. And that to me was surprising, but not surprising because my journey throughout this music industry, I ain't seen nothing but milky white. So yeah.
Okay, Randell, you know, again, following in this theme, we have a lot of gaps in the music industry in terms of Black professionals. You know, people talk about sports all the time, but the discrepancy between the decision makers and the people who create the culture in ours is much worse than, say, football. What is your, you know, what are the gaps in the varied areas of the industry that we need to fill, and how do you suggest that we do that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that I would recognize is that we have to really prioritize the amount of people that are working behind the scenes and ensuring that not only are there programs for artist development, but programs for business development, for music business development. And for me, I think the reason why that's really, really important is we have so many artists that are out there. A lot of artists that are out there, but what we're lacking is those who really understand how to support an artist get where they need to get to. And it kind of reminds me of sports, like basketball, for example. A lot of people who are playing, a lot of people who are making music, but not enough Black booking agents. You know, I don't think there might be one Black booking agent here in Canada, you know what I'm saying? And so I think it's really important that we fill those roles in. And just kind of speaking specifically to like even here in the city of Toronto, I find, you know, thinking of the big organizations, arts organizations in the city, you know, we've got Unity Charity, who was founded by Mikey Prosserman, Manifesto from Che, Drex and Gavin Remix, and of course, NIA has its own history with Ian Kamau, you know, Kamau kind of starting thing. But besides that, like that's the only person. And so when I was looking to get some support, of course I could reach out to Che, but I think there's only so much connection that was made, you know, reaching out, being able to connect, because there's just a different level of understanding when it's someone who's built an organization that understands what it takes to be Black. Because I just look at, for example, you know, these are non-Blacks who started an organization that's Black serving, but I'm looking at I'm a black executive director who founded and started this organization, whereas they're not black, but they're black serving organizations, right? As opposed to black led, and there's just a certain dissonance in terms of understanding what it looks like, what it takes, because they can show up to certain tables and have certain conversations and get funding that I'm not necessarily privy to, or may not be privy to, just to be in that room in and of itself, right? So it causes a lot of interesting questions, but in that vein, for those who are high up, so for example, someone like Mark Campbell, or even someone like Dwayne Dixon, who was running Nia Center at one point, you know, and Manifesto as well too, right? Because there weren't that many. There weren't that many who were high up in that position. They were kind of helping many of us across the spectrum, as opposed to the fact that if they had a smaller, you know what I mean? So they may not be as accessible because they were working twice as hard, you know? So I think there's just a lot of dissonance in terms of what it means to be, whether it's black led or black serving, and then the mentorship that you're able to access as a result of it. And I guess like circling it back, because there's not enough, the mentorship is kind of scarce as a result of it, you know?
Yeah. So I'm going to open it up so that everybody can speak all the time, as opposed to me throwing questions to everybody, because we're touching on different subjects. Ebony, I'd love to hear your take on the challenges of a Black-led organization versus a Black serving organization. And Alika, you can speak to this from the Nia Center perspective as well. Ebony?
So I need to co-sign everything that Randall said, especially getting a seat at the table and getting the stupendous amounts of funding that I could only dream about. I remember one organization told me that Black serving, but not Black led, that their cost for the sound for the event that they put on was more than what I was getting for the entire year to fund the program. Just their sound costs, you know, and happy to, you know, proud to say that. So that's been a continual frustration for me. And also for an organization that serves women. I was mentioning to you that sexism is a huge issue. And so we're not seen as being something as urgent as an organization that serves young Black men, that causes some fear in society about having to throw money to help put programs together. So we're not seen as some urgent threat that they need to support. So that's another issue there. But yeah, mainly just co-signing everything that Randall said, getting through. And also there are people, there are Black people in positions of power that don't always help, don't always return a call. And we have to, at some point, talk about that and how we should do more to assist one another. The idea of lifting as you rise and not just like moving forward and not looking back. So just want to throw that out there.
Okay. Alika?
Yeah, I mean,
Talk, Ebony.
oh. Go ahead, Randall. Is it Randall?
No, sorry, I was just bigging up what Ebony was saying.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that Zoom delay is real. So yeah, I think that point is really key. I mean, I always say that the only time I work with corporations is if there's a Black person that works at that corporation, and they're probably the most junior person on the staff team, but they're looking for ways to work with community organizations. And that's probably the first time that corporation has ever worked with a Black organization. So, you know, the deficit in terms of being able to secure resources as a Black-led organization is real, because, you know, our board is all made up of Black professionals. And, you know, the kinds of corporations that are going to be attracted to working with us are not there. They're looking for, you know, organizations with, you know, larger visibility, you know, more of a significant opportunity in their eyes to give back, but that's usually because it's a cause that's more mainstream. And so they are not looking at, you know, how can we support Black organizations who are working with Black communities in the way that this sort of more recent political moment has surfaced. That kind of interest for a long time, it's just been us really having to grind to make those connections because they don't exist in our networks, right? Being able to get the CEO of X bank, we're not in those circles to be able to connect with those people. We're not in those circles to connect with directors of major corporations. They're reaching out and asking, you know, their kids or their partners, who should we support? And it's all whoever's having lunch together on the weekend and meeting up at, you know, having brunch, that's who ends up getting supported. So Black organizations have long been looking for and needing more support because those corporate connections aren't there.
Okay, so I want to jump back towards mentorship and actually I want to speak to, you know, recruitment processes and things in terms of, like, while we're talking about organizations, and Jamelia, you work at a corporation, so maybe you could, as both a young person and somebody who works in a corporation, maybe kind of give some insight into what you think could be done in terms of outreach from these corporations that are saying that they'd like to help to organizations like NIA or RISE, you know, like internships and those kind of things. Maybe you can talk about internships and how they work.
Well, huge question. Like, so that's such a doozy to answer. Super multifaceted, so many ways you can take it. But internship, one thing I'll say is I think that, you know, starting younger is really important. So one of my primary roles was to hire interns for the department to be a publicist and to work in our department and see how we work and get you, you know, your foot in the door. So I did that for years. So I made it a point to hire, you know, people of color, Black people, to be interns, because I know what it means to have this on your resume, to say you worked here, even, you know, no matter what your experience was, just having that name means something. So it wasn't that I was just hiring anybody that was Black. Like, I hired everybody, but like I really made it a point to make sure when I saw Black applicants to really make sure that I was giving them a fair shot and an opportunity, because when I look around in this industry, not just in the building that I work in, but everywhere, it's very Caucasian. So I know that I don't have an example to look up to, and I wanted to make sure that, you know, I give people an opportunity to even get a peek into what this looks like realistically, to make that decision and have that opportunity. And even somebody who was on one of the previous episodes of panel, Yvette, she was one of my former interns. And I feel really happy to see, you know, now a couple of years later, they're starting their own initiatives and organizations. And when there's panel opportunities, they're being called upon to speak. So that makes me, I don't think I'm, you know, the reason she started her career, but I mean, just to give her that stepping stone, that you know, introduction into the industry is super duper important. And just to see the kind of ripple effects, I think I want to see more of that. So internships is really important. I think, you know, right now, I can only speak for like my industry. We hire from universities or like accredited programs that go towards your degree, certificate, whatever it is you're trying to get. So that, you know, narrows down immediately who we can offer the opportunities to, because you have to be from these programs. And then you talk about a lot of these internships are unpaid, and then you're narrowing it down even more. So you have to come from an accredited program, it has to go towards your degree to graduate, and then you have to be willing to be unpaid for months. So it really narrows down the pool of who you can choose from. So it's a huge issue, and I don't know how to solve it en masse, because it's you know, the industry kind of moves as a whole, and it kind of takes like a major player to make the first step and be like, this isn't going to work. So who's going to be the person to step up and make that ripple effect? I don't know who it is. And I don't want to call anybody else to say you should do it, but it needs to be done. I don't see it changing any other way.
Ian?
So, yeah, so sorry, go ahead, Clark.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm a direct product of getting in the system from not going to like a major post-secondary school. You know, I went to a music school. I went to Harris, you know, which definitely helped. But when I was working, you know, at BMG many moons ago, everybody that I hired within our street department came from the street. You know, I was literally, you know, I meet somebody at a nightclub or I meet somebody here. I'm like, yo, you like music? Okay, yo, I work for a record company. I need somebody on the ground. Can you help me out? That no longer exists. So the entry point for necessarily people, you know, even Black people that love music but might not have are excellent thinkers, creative people who really want to be involved, the limitation to even get in is smaller now because those departments don't exist anymore, right? You know, Remix Project, Gavin was actually one of my interns. You know, that's a perfect example of somebody who came and saw and learned from the industry and built his own, you know, helped build Remix from what he was seeing in different places. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I want to go back to something that Jamelia said, because we're talking about systemics here. And you'd mentioned, you know, like who can afford to take an unpaid internship. Can you speak maybe, and then I want to jump to Ziploc, Rich, and Ebony, because you also had mentioned something else. But if you want to speak on the systemic impact of maybe not being able to work, like the historical bias in the internship program, and as much as some people may not be able to work free.
Absolutely. You know, obviously the people, if I'm targeting, you know, university students, we're looking usually, you know, people who are like 20 to 24 or whatever. So, you know, the people who have mommy and daddy's money or who still live at home or who don't need to work or don't have, you know, kids or don't have the responsibilities that a lot of, you know, young Black people in the city and this country are undertaking and have to recognize and reckon with. There are a lot of people who don't have that, and then automatically, you know, if I say, well, I prefer somebody who can be here for 5 days a week and who can work here from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Can you do that? And it's like, well, no, because I need to make money. I need to be able to pay rent. I need to pay my bills, and that's very real. And you know, I always say, if you have a part-time job, you know, we can work with them. Maybe I could try and be flexible, and I try not to be so strict. And you try and find flexibility, and you kind of try and make it work as to the best of your ability. But I see, you know, even from the application process to who applies just with their resume, to who gets an interview, to who gets the position, you know, the demographics of what that looks like semester after semester, year after year, it's really apparent. It's just not something that's just like an opinion. It's right there in my inbox. I can see it. So it's a real problem, and I just don't know who's going to be the person to step up and change it.
So you had spoken about, you know, when we're talking, and Ebony had spoken about, Ebony's halfway off the screen, by the way. You had spoken about education, and you had alluded to the fact that these corporations need to start younger. Stephen, Randell, Rich, you guys all work at different ages, but what could these corporations be doing, you know, because you really have to start figuring out your career from grade 7 these days. Right? So what could these organizations be doing in terms of the spaces that you guys work in to get people younger? And then we'll go to Ebony on like the next step after that.
I'll just briefly say really quickly that I think starting early is a key component. Like I personally go back to like my alma mater, I go to schools and I speak and like, you know, talk about my career and talk about, you know, my experience and XYZ. And usually there's like a Q&A afterwards. The students can come up and talk to you, and the lineup to talk to me is always like out the door, just because of what we do is like sexy and interesting and celebrity and cool. I understand that, but they're so hungry for the information that they'll wait, they'll stay. They have no other avenue to get that. And I remember being in school and hearing the firsthand accounts from industry professionals and people who are actually in the field meant the most to me. But I also remember being a student and thinking it'd be cool to be like a Black person and do it, because all the students that came to my school to speak, or not students, all the professionals that came to speak to us were white, which was great. And I, you know, went into that field. But I know that I want to, now that I am in this position, I want to reach back, as to what Ebony was saying before, and be that person. But I think starting younger, because I found out about being a publicist and what that even is and looks like in the 7th grade. My teacher was like, you should be a publicist. And I was like, okay, lady, like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm in 7th grade, but it stuck with me. And I think starting in middle school is important, just to get that in their brain, because when you're in university, it's too late. You're already chosen your field, you're chosen your degree, like it's too late by then. Start in middle school when they're making the decisions before they get to high school, so they can choose academic or advanced. That's what it was when I was in school, as opposed to basic and what you were describing earlier, Ebony, with academic and advanced in my age. So they can make that decision if they decide I want to be a publicist in the 7th grade. When they get to 9th grade, they can say, well, I know I need academic classes, and then they can stream upwards.
Okay, Rich, you know, and Stephen, you guys were, and Randell, you guys all, actually everybody works in the youth space. You know, what about the kids in the hood? What about, you know, like?
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about it, and really, I think it starts at the foundation. If you have kids, I remember going to an elementary school, and I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but when you're in a music class, you're taught how to play, you know, the recorder or the clarinet or the rest of that, right? And now you have computer classes, and you're teaching kids as young as elementary school, you're teaching them how to use Word and how to use Excel. Well, why don't we throw in a little bit of GarageBand and, you know, Pro Tools, all these different things we could be teaching kids from when they're young, that these are things that they could do. And you know, when it comes to, I remember even taking a poetry class, and I had to come up to my professor after and say, I said, it's a shame because you're a Black professor, but out of all the poets I've studied here, you've not had one Black person, and you've not even included hip hop. So, I mean, to me, in these university, even in elementary school, why not, kids that graduate from elementary school, you got to be able to quote a, you know, one verse from Let Your Backbone Slide. Like, these are the things that our young kids should be taught. They should be able to come out knowing a little something about the history, and showing not only, and again, this is for the adults and, you know, the parents, that it's not just a struggling music artist. If you decide to do music, it's not just going to be, you're going to be a struggling artist your whole life. Because a lot of parents, obviously, they try to steer their kids away from an industry or, you know, a professional career, that it's going to be a struggling artist. We got to show these young people, and it actually has to be that we have Black people in Canada that are doing music as a profession, that are paying their bills on a regular basis, because there are other people that are doing that. So it's having an industry to support that, and then also showing these young people, right? And giving them the opportunity to you know, to learn about music from when they're young. I got to say, one thing I've been involved in from Butter Baby's days back in, you know, one of the big hoods, Little Burgundy, and now I'm in NDG. I've set up studios for teenagers to come and have access to a free studio where you can learn how to make a beat, you can learn how to record, and, you know, all these kids want to take in a little YouTube beat, record it on the mic, and be able to put it up on their Snapchat and the rest of that. But at least that's something. Start to teach them from young. And I got to tell you, nowadays, the playing level, the playing field can be very even with a simple computer. So if you talk about the corporations and, you know, whether it be the grant boards and all the rest of that, that's where some of that, the finances can be pushed into, is supporting organizations that do these type of things that end up touching these people, you know, and then the people that come out will be that much better. Like, imagine if all of us from when we were like 14, every day after school, could go touch a free studio or got advice from an elder. Some of us did and got similar opportunities, but imagine if we all did from young. I think we'd just be better.
And I think that there's a, when we talk about representation, I think that with the absence of people in certain levels, there's a stigma that's attached to all of the Black musics, not just hip hop and R&B, but all of the musics in terms of it being formal. I use the example of ballet being formal, but breakdancing not. You know, again, I want everybody to speak. Rich, Alika, Randell, Ebony, everybody. Sorry, Jamelia too.
I think that, like, the piece around reaching young people in schools is really key. I also am aware of for, not sure what that was, how long it takes for school boards to change. Like, everyone's coming at them with, like, change this, change that. And I just don't feel like that's happening in this decade. But I think that's like a key role for community organizations, right? Like if you know that your child has an interest in music, they should be able to, you know, be connected to a well-resourced program that offers them access to studio instruments, you know, the knowledge and connection to more established artists, so that they're not navigating this industry like they've never known someone who can connect them in that way. And that's, I think, a critical value that community orgs can play, and corporations and industry can partner, so that the training that's being provided is, you know, cultivating a set of skills that that next generation needs to succeed in your organization or succeed in a rapidly shifting industry. We know that post-secondary organizations are behind. You go to university right now, you're not learning the skills that you need to survive at a job, especially in this day and age, right? So I think the benefit of working and partnering with community orgs is you get access to that same demographic. You can work together to create programs that are structured and that develop the next generation of professionals that could be working in your organization, and then they're equipped with the skills that you want to see. So I see that as just like a critical way around this.
Sorry.
Ebony?
Go ahead, Ebony.
I'm not sure what's happening now, but when I was an adolescent, they had these programs where they would ask you what you thought you wanted to be when you grew up, and then they would arrange for an opportunity to go to that profession for a few days. So at that point, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. So I would, I think for a week, I had a kindergarten class, or I would kind of study with the teacher there. The challenge is that kids at that age don't know what a publicist is, right? They just might know the main things: teacher, doctor, lawyer, dentist, etc. There's no way that they're gonna come into hearing some of the other terms of the different areas of the music industry. And so I think that as an industry, if you're saying this is something that you want to change, you have to then take the reins and make it happen. I'm a big proponent of not waiting for people who should do things to do those things. Yeah, they should eventually do it. They should maybe do it now. They should maybe do it yesterday. But if it's not happening, don't just be like, oh, well, right? And so you can just decide, we as an industry are going to put on a career day, find a space to host it, get the different people from the different professions that are going to have tables, and that people can go and talk to them. You're going to have some demonstration of what your job is, some visuals and that sort of thing, and let that be an introduction. I've never seen that happen for the music industry. It wouldn't really be that difficult to do. It could be an exciting thing.
I wanted to throw an idea out. Actually, it's a question first. Do you guys feel that, especially I guess for Randell, Rich, Zip, Alika, do you guys feel that there's enough programming being done for professionals in the workspace and entertainment in educating and training in facilities like yours?
I'd say, in my opinion, I don't think there is enough, because one organization can only, work with so many different youth, and I think we need more, to be real. And more, the only challenge with it is as long as it's not competing with each other, right? If we understand, hey, you know what, I'm focusing on Publicists and A&Rs, and this company is working on this. I think we need to be a little bit more organized in terms of how we go about it, but I don't think there's ever enough, because there's a kid that doesn't necessarily know that it exists, or might find out about what you're doing through like an auntie or uncle. So I don't think there's enough, but I wanted to kind of loop something back in. So a lot of the kids in the hood love music. A lot of the kids in the hood are hustling, and this hustle is entrepreneurship. When I was in the hood, I was hustling, and a lot of my hustles really taught me a lot about entrepreneurship, about product, understanding the product, understanding, customer relationship, understanding the business, understanding the market, like really knowing your market. What I'd love to do is I'd love to go to the hood and these kids who are slanging and hustling to be able to teach, like break down what they've learned from hustling and then bring that and translate that over to the music industry, because there's business is business at the end of the day, right? It's just these are transferable skills that we haven't really capitalized on, So all right, I'm going to go back to the hood. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to do my thing. But you've learned about all these different things when it comes to, value proposition, even down to value proposition. We can bring these things down so that not only do they understand a business model, but that they can take these skills from whatever, selling a dime or whatever, and bring that over to the music industry. That's something I'd love to see happen, personally, especially in the hood.
So I have a quick question before I jump to Rich Kid. Do any of these programs, Rich, Remix, or Randell, Alika, Zip, any of you guys can tell me, are there any programs that offer high school credits for music at external organizations outside of the...
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that Coalition Music does this. So Coalition Music, I got to give them a lot of credit. So Coalition Music's here in Scarborough. So what they do is they work with Wexford. So Wexford is right down the street. It's like 2 minutes, it's like 5 minutes away from them. So they've been able to get youth to come in and they do like a summer course. So it's a partnership with the TDSB, right? So there's an opportunity. So a lot of these organizations, what we can do as organizations is create a partnership with TDSB. So that's us going into their space or we having a physical space they can come into, right? But then you build a curriculum that not only teaches, but helps them see the path from understanding what it means to be a publicist, but there's a path that's created so that if you do decide to go into publishing, then you understand what the path and what the trajectory can actually look like. But Coalition Music,
I've actually spoke. I actually went on one of their programs and was a speaker at one of their schools, and it's interesting. The difference that I see in these spaces, the only thing I would say is it comes down to, I think, I forget who said it. Somebody talked about it looking glamorous and pretty. You know what I mean? It tastes like sugar. It's like, you go into these schools, I'd say more, it's like a 1% person in the class might be really intrigued and listening, and I got to drop some real names of people I've worked with or whatever for them to all of a sudden be like, oh, okay, now I'm listening, versus going and speaking at R.I.S.E. or going and speaking at Remix or going and speaking at like these spaces, everybody's already there is like, yo, I'm hungry. I really want it. And it's a different experience. And I think that you guys do a great job at bringing those people into those spaces. The question that I really want to break down is like, is there systematic challenges in these organizations to do other type of programming that we are not doing? And that's why I asked that question first, because the other questions, because I see that we're really great at building creatives. I think we are masterful at building creatives, but I see a lack in building other professions. And I question, is that because there's not funding allowed? There's no funding available for us? Why is that the case?
In terms of Remix, like just to even answer that last question before, Remix also offers high school credits for those who haven't completed secondary. Depending on how many credits they have left, we could talk to their school and enable them to finish a program and earn about up to 3 credits. And then we also, for our graduate, for some of the youth that graduate from the business program, the ones that show the most, I guess, engagement, get scholarships to Humber's business program for a 1-year business program for free. But in terms of systematic challenges, say the question again, sorry.
Is there, I mean, I know a little bit how Remix is structured, but I'm wondering overall, like, is there limitations, is there challenges that we're facing as Black organizations in trying to access more funding to help us build more professions? Do you know what I'm saying? Beyond like, oh, here's a microphone and a computer, go build some raps. Like we need accountants, lawyers, publicists. Do you know what I'm saying?
Definitely. I think when it comes to Remix, the flagship program is the studio, is the music portion of it. So a lot of our funding that we've received has been based off of, like at first it was, what Rob Ford used to call a Hug a Thug program, where we would take in guys from the streets and try to put them in a space where they would be creative. Before there was a Drake, right? Drake actually would use the studio at those times before he was big. And then as time went along and just with our connection with OVO and stuff, we started focusing on just trying to build careers, right? Or getting them ready for careers in the entertainment industry. And then we always had the side where we had business management in terms of music, sports, and different fields like that. And it's always been hard to get more funding from like just for just the business orientated stuff rather than the whole program, right? I think because there's a lack of organizations that fund that kind of section of youth organizations. They're like we kind of have to share the funding for the music. Like the music gets the lion's share of stuff, and then we share it amongst the rest of the program. That's usually how I see it going. And we have a lot of dope, like, you know, young professionals, entrepreneurs that are in our program, or were in the program prior, that we're looking for mentors. And luckily we connected them to different people and connections that we have. But, you know, just thinking of how many people try to get into the program, we can't accept everybody. Our space is limited. And now with COVID, it's even less, it's like less people are in the space. So I think if we had more funding, one, to expand our business program, expand the whole program in general, so then we could have more youth and get them accesses to those, or get them access to those mentors that we have access to, or networking, it would definitely help out.
So I have a question. So, you know, Click had alluded to some of the challenges that, you know, EBONNIE or RANDELL or anybody might face in creating a Black space or organization. I know that you tried to create an organization earlier in your career, Rich, and Remix is a Black serving organization as opposed to a Black led organization. What were some of the challenges that you faced personally? And do you think that you would have faced those challenges had you not been Black?
Definitely wouldn't face those challenges if I was not Black. I think, you know, speaking of Remix, you know, just, you know, me, you and Click talked about it earlier. Like, you know, I started this stuff as a musician. Getting into Remix, I started growing a love for like just being around youth and helping them out and helping out my peers, and wanting to do something like that in the future once I get some paper, or once I get some, you know, some clout, and where I could get some funding to do it. But like, you know, a white dude was my mentor in this space, right? It's not like he taught me how to serve Black people. I know my people, but he taught me how to do it in an organizational kind of way, in a structured kind of way, where, you know, I could go for grants, because mainly in a lot of our heads, it was just like hustling for the money. But he taught us how to like go for grants, and how to write grants in a certain way, how to present ourselves in front of funders and stuff like that. And just following him through his journey, I learned a lot, and I brought those kind of lessons and applied them to my own programs that I had started or I'd worked with in the city. But I know, you know, in the future, if I want to, you know, fully start my own program, it's going to be an uphill battle, because, you know, like, that's why I respect guys like RANDELL, like, who came from the Remix movement and then went and started off his own thing. And his movement's been very beneficial in the city. Anytime there's somebody that asks me, where can I go and do an open mic, or where can I go get my performance chops? I'm like, yo, go to R.I.S E, man. They support what we do. They put artists on a stage, and there's a audience there to give critiques and help you out and lead you on the right path. So, like, you know, when I see RANDELL, he's one of those examples of a person that, you know, he's been fighting through the industry and through this whole field just to get his space, and he's fought hard to get it, and he has it. And we need more guys like him, you know what I mean? Like, that can take the lessons that are learned in these kind of spaces and adapt them, and just have Black-led organizations, have black, I guess, you know, just black being displayed at the head of it, instead of just in the middle or the bottom. In terms of Remix, you know, luckily we have a woman as our ED now, so it gives it less of a feeling of just, you know, just the man at the top, you know, no diss to Gavin, you know, dressed and stuff like that. But that's what it appears a lot of the time as a Black serving organization. If you have white people at the head of it, it can kind of look like, you know, especially in 2020, it's just like, you need people that can serve their people, and also have a lot more ethnic, kind of just a palette. Just they know how to deal with different people, and it just it just invites different people into the spaces. I think we kind of changed a lot of things of how Remix ran. Like, you know, it always seemed like a boys club because there was always guys at the top, and now there's female representation, there's ethnic representation, and we've somehow gotten more funding, and we've opened it up to more youth, and more people have benefited from it in that sense.
So I want to jump to Ebony, Alika, and Jamelia. Ebony, and I want you to speak on the organizational challenges, but I want to step into the Black woman space as well, and I want to talk about. If you can give us your thoughts on the organizational challenges faced when you were trying to build.
I wanted to address your question. I think it was Click's question about challenges accessing funding to do some of the things that you're suggesting. To promote training and mentorship of different positions that you would like to see more Black representation in.
Yes.
My experience is that they are very open. Places like Factor, Ontario Creates, the Arts Councils, they're very open to supporting different things. I've not faced that barrier at all to do with my gender or my race. The challenge with dealing with funding organizations is that it works best when you have a very fluid cash flow where you can fund these things on your own, and if they give you the money to reimburse you, great. If not, you're good. That's not the position that most nonprofits are in. And so then that impacts your ability to plan in advance. So that is a challenge. The pots of money that we are often excluded from are the huge hundreds of thousands of dollars that you see have become available now that it is in fashion. Like, who knew that those pots of money even existed? And so then it's a matter of, how do you access that? How do you know who those people are? How do you get in? So that is the challenge, is to have the access.
And one of the things I would like to add,
those dollars.
one of the things I'd like to add to that as a solution, Ian and Ebony, is the idea of when somebody does access this type of funding, that there's some sort of mandate or policy that makes them have to spend the money back within these communities that already exist. So if somebody already received the bank of money here, oh, you gotta go spend this with Ebony Rowe. She's been in the game 25 years. You need to go spend this with Nia. They've been in the year 10, 15 years, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I think there needs to be some policy and transparency to where, that's just my solution idea. You know what I mean? But that's what I think.
So there's a lot of these organizations that are speaking.
They're also sharing the wealth. Not like, oh, if I get money, I'm going to give you some money. But if I get money to do a specific program, and we do this all the time, I will contact Remix and say, we've got some money to do this 10 spots. I have contacted Alika and said, we would invite some people from the center to attend, right? We always do that. And I think more people need to do that because there's only a certain amount of money. And so if you have the ability to, not everybody does, sometimes people are dealing with a small cohort and they cannot accommodate anyone else, but sometimes you can, and if you can, please do.
So, you know, these, we're speaking, I've kind of lost track, but we're speaking on these organizations, these companies that have, it's come into fashion, as Ebony said, to put out money because of the racial pandemic that we're experiencing. Alika, I don't know where RANDELL's gone, but everybody, Stephen, who can speak on this. Core funding versus project-based funding. You know, there's a lot of money being thrown out. How much of this money is allocated in ways that you guys can actually utilize it?
I mean, my inbox is just full with people who are like, hey, can we do something? Like, can we You know, we want to read a play that's written by a white woman about a Black woman shooting a white man, but we want to fundraise for you. Is that okay? No, it's not. There's a lot of ridiculousness. And there are some opportunities, you know, to work together with corporations or other partners that are meaningful. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of people right now are coming through because they want to showcase to their audience that they've worked with a Black artist, a Black organization for this moment in time to, you know, do a new line or brand, you know, whatever that they have, as opposed to actually meaningfully building and creating sustainable opportunities for Black artists and creatives and musicians, et cetera. So, you know, there is a significant difference between core funding or sustained funding or even a partnership that's over a long term versus what's happening right now, which is I need to be Black in this moment. So who can I work with from your organization that will allow me to, you know, demonstrate that I'm doing something for the Black community or with the Black community? And that's not useful. So, you know, we're, you know, obviously very discerning with who we partner with, because it's not about, you know, having a Black designer create, you know, a new label for your product, but you have no interest in, you know, paying someone on the long term or developing a sustained partnership where we can have a number of product lines, or we can, you know, create an internship or a placement, or, you know, get a young person hired into your company. Those are meaningful opportunities. But what's happening right now is just the scramble for, you know, the Black branding opportunity.
So are you guys going to run out of, like, so you get $100,000 today. What happens in 3 years? Randell, Stephen, Rich, Ebony, can anybody speak to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the problem.
I haven't gotten my 100,000 yet.
Yeah, I'm waiting on that check. I keep checking the mailbox. But I think when it comes to project-oriented funding, where you get money for a project and then you have to rehire and, you know, get everything set, and then you have to reapply, stuff like that. This is, I mean, it's a community working problem, but specifically when it comes to music and the rest of that, it's hard to try to work off a year to year to get the proper person in place, to pay them the proper amount of money. It just won't come together as easily if this was more, okay, well, for the next X amount of years, and I'm talking honestly, 3 years minimum to get things started and rolling. Especially if you're talking getting young people in and involved to build that momentum and that foundation with the people in the community, you need at least 3 years consistently of doing the project, right? If you're doing it on a yearly basis, you have to tell somebody, okay, well, you've got the job for a year, but then you're gonna have to, on your own time, write the grant to try to get the money back again. And there may be a month or two in between where you're not getting money. So, you know, like, that's a problem. And then the quality people won't take those type of jobs. So then you don't have the quality people that are running these organizations to give the quality product to the young individuals. And again, and then at the end of the day, then these young individuals are not at their best. So, you know, that's definitely a part of the problem.
Yeah. I'm gonna just say this right now. I don't like Donald Trump, but his idea of shutting down TikTok, or TikTok finding a company, American company, and then taking that money. I don't know if it's true what he's actually, because he lies about everything, but what he said he was going to do is take 5 million or 5 billion from TikTok and put it in an education fund. They should do that with all the record labels in Canada that profit off of Black culture. So Universal, Sony, Warner. Even though Black music isn't the highest seller in Canada in terms of like Black artists from Canada, they still have labels up here where they push Black American artists to us. So they still make money off of us. So I feel like they should develop a fund. Like I know Justin Trudeau cleared, I don't know, what is it, 50 billion for, how much it was for Black entrepreneurs, but
Those are loans, by the way. They're not grants.
Yeah, so those are loans, right? I think that sustainability in these music programs that we run, since we help develop these artists so then the label can just take them and exploit them, they should be paying into these programs. They should be paying into these neighborhoods to help develop a culture of one, education in learning in music business, learning how to even start organizations where you can help out, like, you know, just creating another remix or creating another R.I.S.E or creating all these another, well, maybe not another honey jam, maybe just invest in the honey jam, because we want empathy running that. But like these labels that already profit off us should just feed back into us. I think they make enough money to sustain themselves, and we put our tax dollars in to create these artists where they're going to eat off anyways. So they need to give back.
Sorry, Ebony.
Isn't that what happened? Didn't Advance get a couple $1 million for exactly that reason?
I think so. She was asking, isn't that what Advance got? I think that it's not a question of what Advance got as much as what Jay-Z said. It has to be, it can't just be Oprah. It has to be Will and more Black people. It's $2 million that Advance got. It's $983 million that We Day got. Like, so I think that sometimes we're pointing at the moon and you're looking at the hand, because what Advance got in terms of, and maybe Jamelia can speak to this because she's a member of Advance or Click, but is minuscule in terms of the overall amount that the industry for Black music professionals should be receiving. That is a starting point, and they are starting. But I think that it shouldn't be, isn't that what Advance got? I think it's Advance should get it, Ebony should get it, Nia should get it, Tropicana should get it, JCA should get it.
Some Oprah. Like,
exactly.
You get a grant. You get a grant. You get.
I was addressing specifically what Rich was saying, where he said, shouldn't there be a fund that the record labels put money into for exactly what we're talking about? So I'm responding to that, saying, isn't that what that money is supposed to be for? So it's not about, it's not about what you were saying. I'm just addressing that there is a pot of money, and I thought that that is when I think.
I know that the money that was announced with Advance was not like a pot of money that came from record companies specifically. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's definitely something I know is a fact. But I do know, like, you know, like Cardi was on here last week speaking about the mentorship program that he started with Universal and what they're doing. So there is activity happening in those spaces, but it's like, I think that's a great idea, Rich. I also think that it's bigger than just record companies, because our industry and the biggest challenge that we have in us winning, period, is not just record companies. It's media companies, it's promoters, it's the Live Nations, it's the Bell Medias, it's the, like, all these organizations who are basically the gatekeepers for our media, who we are the creators and the people delivering that. Where do we exist in these spaces to actually run the culture? Who's actually running the culture? Do you know what I'm saying? So that's really what a lot of the conversation needs to come back to is, you know, how do we actually mentor and educate and train, not just, you know, I hear a lot of talk about young people. There's older people too. Let's not get ageism in the mix here. If I could find somebody that's 30, 40 years old and could do a better job than a 19, 20-year-old, hire him. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like at the end of the day, we need to talk about how do we actually educate and mentor people. And I want to share something, if you don't mind, Randell, because I think it's a very important thing. Randall came to me. Is this okay, Randall? Randall, I can't hear you.
He said yeah.
Yes? Okay. So Randall, I have a lot of respect for Randall because of what he does at R.I.S.E. I love the way he interacts with people. I love the energy and the empowerment that this brother has. If you have not been to R.I.S.E., you must attend a R.I.S.E., you know? And Randall came to me humbly saying, listen, I really want to venture into booking. It's an area that I really want to do. Right away, my ears perked. I'm like, oh shit, a brother wants to do booking? We need more brothers doing booking in this country. I'm like, listen. And the funniest thing is, the day that he came, we're sitting in a coffee shop having this conversation, and a brother from one of the biggest booking agents, not a brother, sorry, a gentleman from one of the biggest booking agencies happens to walk in to the coffee shop we're at. I'm like, oh, this is a sign. I'm like, this must be a sign. So, you know, I invite him over, I introduce him to Randall, and I say, hey, we happen to have a conversation about the space that you work in. And, you know, I was saying to him that we need to help mentor each other into positions. We need, like, if we know somebody like Jamelia, how you said, you know, you worked with a vet, and you know, EBONNIE, I know the work that you do is amazing in terms of bringing mentors in to work with your artists. It's the same type of thing. You know, I wouldn't be at Universal if it wasn't for Ivan Barry putting me there. Do you see what I'm saying? Or the opportunity for me to be there. So when I saw the opportunity at RANDELL, I'm like, this is the type of stuff that we need to do in our community. But at the same time, the problem that I see is, this is the systematic problem that I see, is that these companies are not necessarily even letting us in the door or to even have the conversation. And they smile on our face and do something different. And that's exactly what happened to us that day. This individual was like, oh, nice to meet you. Oh, you're interested in getting in the business. Oh, here, take my information. Give me a call. Let's talk. RANDELL, did you even hear back from this person? I can't hear you. You something must have happened.
Unmute.
Mute and unmute again.
Yep, there. Go.
Unplug. You're not talking. Something's happened. Unplug your thing altogether.
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
That's weird. Okay, so I sent him an email. I think maybe within 12 hours, I sent him an email. Didn't hear back. Followed up with him again the next, maybe 3 days later. Still never heard back, and this is like a year and a half later.
And to me, that's a problem. Maybe you don't have a position there, but you should at least engage this young gentleman and be like, listen, this is what the job entails. This is what it's like. Let's build a relationship. And if something comes up down the line, I know who to reach out to. And if he rises to the occasion, the opportunity might be there. But this is what I want to encourage other companies out there, is that you have creative, smart, excellent people that are willing and want to fill roles and be a voice within the landscape of the music industry and bring culture and a different experience that you will never even imagine until it gets into your space, you know? And I want to encourage people to be open-minded and to actually engage with people like myself, Ian and EBONNIE and Rich and Zip and Elika in regards to opportunities that we're bringing you. You know,
Yeah,
sorry, I'm on my rah-rah right now. Sorry.
And I just want to add something to it real quick, if you don't mind, though. Speaking of the company that Click was speaking about, right? So that company might hear this and say, you know, okay, shit, what can we do? How can we do this? This really reminds me of the funding industry, like the not-for-profit industry, but also realistically just the funding model as is. It's always reactionary, right? After Black Lives Matter, after George Floyd, let's put the money into the community, right? But George Floyd isn't the first. It's happened before, and it's been happening. So how do we be more preemptive? How do we do it beforehand? You know what I'm saying? Knowing that kids in the hood need a place to go to, understanding that Black youth need a space to understand more about music. I think we just got to be more preemptive because we know the problems. And the only way to really be more preemptive is actually do really it's about a human-centered approach to solving problems, right? Talking to people, asking questions, as opposed to someone dies. The whole reason why Justin Trudeau even released this money into loans is because it looks better for him as a prime minister. You know, we got to be more preemptive, though.
So I want to clarify something just for clarity. EBONNIE, I realized that you weren't asking a question specifically about Advance. When I responded to you, it was because all of these corporations and organizations have an obligation to the community. And actually, I want to use that to segue into what should these, you know, Jamelia, you may want to answer here too. What do you think that like music companies or organizations or government could be doing to recruit and develop top talent in the space?
And like professionals in particular, or everybody, the whole industry. I mean, it's endless. Anything you can think of, yes. Like anything you could be doing, you should be doing. Like whether that's seminars or panels or job fairs or whatever that might be, flyers or advertising, whatever that might be. Because if the issue is, or one of the issues our, you know, lack of awareness for all the opportunities that positions that even exist, whether like what those jobs look like, what they entail, the names of them even, then, you know, it's building that awareness. And we know how to build awareness because that's what we do for a million other products. You know, all companies know how to push what they want to push. I don't think it's any kind of secret or reinvent the wheel here. Like whatever the product is that you're promoting, whatever program it is that you're promoting, you find a way to market it, you find a way to sell it. We all wouldn't be here if we weren't working for companies or, you know, had opportunities that have companies that have some sort of name recognition or background. So I think there's ways to spread the word for sure.
Okay. And what do you think, like so like organizations, Alika, you work in a Black run organization is probably a reason. What do you think the recruiting practices that keep these non-Black organizations in like a cycle of hiring the same kind of people? And I know you have to leave shortly, so I don't know if you want to make this your exit.
Yeah, sure. So much gems tonight. Thanks everyone for sharing. I would say that, you know, there is bias in hiring practices, and each organization has to train their staff, train their hiring managers to understand the implicit bias. We all do this. We, you know, all look for familiarity, comfort in the people that we're interacting with. Did we grow up in similar experiences? Do we have a cottage in the same city? You know, did we learn piano? Do we have that sort of shared interest? And you're told as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, to make a connection with the person that you're recruiting. And so often those connections are based on your personal lived experiences. And if that person doesn't share the same kinds of lived experiences as you, they didn't grow up in the same way, that serves as a point that disconnects you. And so, you know, I think for folks who are hiring, and who are in positions of decision-making across different kinds of organizations, they have to realize the bias that they bring to the hiring process and how they recruit for the same. They look for the same. They look for people that speak like them, look like them, have similar experiences, and that prevents and serves a systemic barrier for Black artists and creatives to get into industry. And I think, you know, the first point, you know, around that is to hire people in your organization that are from Black communities so that they're also doing that outreach, to train your staff around bias. And that requires bringing in, you know, preferably a Black consultant, diversity and inclusion consultant, or, you know, equity consultants, to do an audit of your organization, to look at your hiring practices, and then to also look at your culture. There are things about the ways in which your organization operates that affirm whiteness. And, you know, that could be everything from, you know, the kinds of activities you do as a team when you go out. I remember, you know, one of my friends worked at a PR company, and her team went out to get their hair blow dried. And her afro could not be blow dried at the salon they all went to. So the whole team of 15 people went out to go get their hair blow dried and their nails done, and she couldn't participate. And they were like, yeah, you can't participate. Sorry, do you want to go to another salon? What is the point of that as being a team building exercise? Right? So there are elements of the recruiting process, there are elements of your company culture, there are elements obviously of the ways in which you compensate people that are inequitable. And there needs to be an external auditor brought in to analyze and assess those practices and shift them so that your space both is attractive to Black candidates and also retains Black candidates. Because we also see Black people leaving from the companies and positions that they're in because the microaggressions are overwhelming. Shout outs to JAMELIA for sticking it through. So that's my 2 cents. And
do you actually have to run, or can I ask you guys one more question while okay, so JAMELIA, so you spoke very, very passionately there. You know, EBONNIE has alluded to the sexism in the industry. If there's an absence of Black people, there's even more absence of Black women. And I've spoken in past episodes of the cycle whereby Black women come into organizations. They're like, oh my goodness, so great to meet you, JAMELIA. We love you. And then as JAMELIA asserts herself, as EBONNIE speaks passionately, as Alika speaks passionately, they become the angry Black woman. I don't want to mansplain it, so I want you guys to talk about that, because I think it's very important that the audience listening have an understanding of what it is that you guys experience as Black women working in the music industry and in any space.
Okay, please.
Yeah, I mean, Honestly, when you talked about personal experiences around race, I was like, yeah, I'm ready for this. As soon as you brought it up about being a Black woman, I was like, ooh, where do I even start? Like, I'm already triggered. This needs a whole session.
Yeah.
It is difficult to, like, you know, put into a sentence. I think that, you know, one of the things that I would highlight is, you know, as a Black woman trying to build in an industry that's dominated by men, to be taken seriously in this industry is like, just, it doesn't happen, you know? Like, people think I'm trying to approach you, I'm hitting you on a DM, I'm sending you an email, I'm calling you, and there's immediately a tone of like, so sweetie, what's good? What you trying to talk to me about? Like, you know, what you saying? Oh, your Instagram profile's popping, girl. Yeah, let's talk. I'm not coming to you on that level, and you can tell that from my communication. But that's always the tone, you know? And so being a woman in this space, you're immediately, you know, the business part of the conversation always takes a backseat, right? There's always the attempt to have a conversation about outside of the 9 to 5 before we're willing to talk about the 9 to 5. So I would have to put that on the table. And I think that's consistent across, whether we're talking with, you know, corporate partners, potential partnerships. You know, the boys club exists across races, you know, and I think that, you know, men wanting to support men, that's great. You know, Black men need to stick together and you know, there needs to be that allyship. But when you see a sister, if you don't have that conversation and help her out as well, you're doing us all a disservice, you know, because I think men are comfortable as well. They're seeking out the familiar, right? We all have this bias. We seek out things that we're comfortable with. I don't know if I can talk to Alika like that. I don't know if she understands my experience. I don't know where she's coming from. But at the end of the day, we're working towards a shared goal. And so we need to be able to come to each other in a spirit of respect and unity, and knowing what I'm facing and up against is the same thing that you're up against. In industry, we need to acknowledge that. And I feel like I'm not doing this justice in, you know, this short time. I feel like it needs Black women in business is another session. But
we'll do breakout sessions soon.
Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Okay. Ebony and Jamelia, I'm going to come back to you on that question. Alika has to go. So I'm going to ask you the final question, Alika. What is the biggest barrier to the creation of the next generation of Black professionals in the music industry, and what would you like to see in your suggestions?
I think that we need to see partnership with industry. So, you know, all of these organizations exist, R.I.S.E, you know, Remix Project, Nia Center, we're spaces that are about cultivating and supporting young people who are interested in building careers in the arts. But if we don't have strong partnerships with industry organizations to actually ensure that that pathway, whether it be through to school or right into industry, is viable, then we are not going to be successful, right? So we can, I think the partnership needs to start, you know, for the purposes of ensuring that we are recruiting young people who are interested in these careers, that we're cultivating them and ensuring that they have the skills that are necessary, that folks are seeing already in industry and feel like, oh, you know, my, you know, latest candidates don't really understand digital marketing, or they don't understand how the industry is shifted with streaming. So if we're partnering together, we can build training modules that reflect latest trends. And that way then ensure that the young people who are coming through our programs have this solid pathway into industry and employment, ultimately building viable careers. So I think that that's the main thing. And with that, you know, of course, those partnerships comes the, you know, opportunities for internships, the, you know, funding support to support these programs. But I think there needs to be there's right now this disconnect. You know, we come together to do unique initiatives or pop-ups or, you know, launch particular products, but we're not intentionally doing work together to actually cultivate music professionals in a variety of areas. And so that to me needs to be like the main focus for especially the industry partners that are listening.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alika. And I will let you go after that because I've been letting you go like Black people leaving a barbecue. So thank you so much. And, and we will see you soon. Back to Jamelia and Ebony. Ebony and Jamelia are Black women, the angry Black woman paradigm, pay discrepancy, the importance possibly of race-based statistics, audits in organizations to see, you know, say what Jamelia makes as a Black woman publicist in a major label versus her counterparts who are not Black. You guys want to speak to? Everybody's dying.
I'm not actually. I want to co-sign with everything that Alika said about the experience as a Black woman in a male-dominated industry. And the number one thing is being taken seriously and not having to always deal with the harassment side of things. So I think the pay equity stuff, I think that might be something for JAMELIA. I don't even really know what the different inequities might be in pay based on race. I mean, there would have to be statistics, there'd have to be studies done and statistics presented to even be able to comment on it. So JAMELIA, I don't know if you have any comments there.
I think about that in particular, but overall, I think what keeps coming up is that there's a need for, stats. There's a need for an audit. There's a need for us to see it get done so that we have all the information, because, we aren't connected to have a network for us to be able to communicate, to know what's happening in other spaces so we can compare. We don't have the information internally amongst ourselves, let alone formally. So I think, something needs to be, I keep saying something needs to be done, but an audit needs to be done. Something needs to be looked at so that we can assess and find out what's happening, because everything's happening, through whispers and closed doors and meetings and conversations that we're not privy to. We're not in the room and the information isn't trickling down, and it hasn't trickled down. So I think that's a huge thing that's first and foremost, and that can use that as a leaping and a jumping off pad to take that information and then do with that what you may.
Exactly. You need to have facts and figures to state your case.
Absolutely.
Because you can't just announce or say or surmise that something is happening or accuse that something is happening without being able to say, this many people, this percentage, this, we can prove with this data,
Because that's the first thing they're going to say, is that you're just emotional and back to being a woman. They're going to shut you down, and all of a sudden everything that you came with is null and void, and they can just step over everything you just brought up, which could be completely valid, but they'll just shut you up, and that's the end of the conversation. So unfortunately, you have the added burden to know how to address this going into it, and having to be prepared and know how to position and speak well, unfortunately, because I think other people don't have to do that. You can be a blundering fool and they'll still listen to you. But if you're a Black woman, you need to have your points and your facts and your figures and your stats and everything, and come there and attack them that way, so you're not angry and just all the things you like to get labeled as a Black woman.
And you'll still be angry.
And you'll still be angry.
We have to bid adieu to RANDELL, but I want to ask you two quick questions. Quickly, we've been talking about allyship, and I've been, alluding to this throughout the entire series, that we will tell you when you're an ally. But RANDELL, in terms of board of director makeup, I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, what could allies, people who really want to help, bring to an organization like RISE? If you were to bring, the president of Coca-Cola to the board of directors of RISE, in terms of bringing you guys attention, etc. And is that something that you would welcome?
It would really depend on their morals. Just because, I don't really care too much about credentials or titles. It's more about the morals and what you can bring to actually serve the people that we work with. So there's a huge dissonance between corporate and community in general, which is why I love the work that I do, because I get to play the role in the middle. So in terms of bringing individuals like that, I think they'd have to have a community angle to really understand what it means to build community in that respect. So there's room for them, because let's just call it what it is. Business is business. So I know they could bring particular skills and experience that would be really beneficial. But I think it's really important that from an ally perspective, they don't come in saying, hey, this is what I can offer, but more so from a place of, what do you need? So someone who would come to me and say, hey, I'm the president of Coca-Cola, this is what I can do for you, I'm going to be more apprehensive as opposed to somebody who says, I'm the president of Coca-Cola. I'd love to support. What do you need? What do you need support from? So we need to do a better job of listening. And as an ally, I think that's what it really requires. It's a lot of listening. That's going to be super important. And I think the second is to, before you even do anything, to take the time to go out to the community, to understand the people you're serving, right? And if you can do those two things, sure, I can welcome you on my board or have a conversation about it.
So I want to reiterate to the corporations that are paying attention and the organizations, please speak to a member of the Black community before you make a decision based on what you think that we need. Speak to Ebony, speak to R.I.S E, speak to Nia, speak to everybody that you know, and not just the one Black person that you know either, because they may not know anybody that's working at the grassroots level either. Randell, I know you have to go. I'll leave you with the last question. What's the biggest barrier to the creation of the next generation of Black professionals, and what would you like to see done, and what are your suggestions?
I think one of the biggest barrier would have to be like a lack of understanding between the generations. And I think the generations, you know, that have come here before, that have allowed for us to even have funding to apply for as an organization, I'd love to know, what was your struggle? What was your plight in terms of getting that created? So that for me, as someone who now is a beneficiary of these grants or the work that's been done 30, 40 years ago, that I could continue to build that on for the legacy. So it's funny, J. Cole kind of called it like a middle child. I kind of feel like a middle child. I'm really connected to, you know, the elders, and I'm really connected to the youth as well too. And I think for people like me who play such a key role of being the bridge, you know, it's really important that we know what it means to be leaders, but that we also understand what it means to be a mentor. So the biggest thing I'd say is I'd really eradicate the idea of pedagogy. Pedagogy to me, so this is intergenerational mentorship I'm talking about, and I would eradicate pedagogy because it thrives on the idea of us, me versus you, I know versus you don't know, I'm big, you're small type of mentality. I'm right, you're wrong. So I'd eradicate pedagogy and introduce andragogy, which is that elders and everybody essentially has the opportunity to learn from one another. So how do we create intergenerational spaces where we can learn from each other, where we can grow as a community, because that's what we need to do. So that's, to me, the biggest barrier. And I'd love to understand more about, you know, the plight of the generations that came before me, just so not only do I continue to like water that tree that they've created, but I understand the roots of the tree so I can understand how to create fruit out of it. I hope that makes sense. But
yeah, so young people for war, older people for council. So I will connect you to Ebony so that you guys can, instead of putting a Lego block here and a Lego block here, one can be put on top. If you were to speak to the people in the power positions that are watching, what would the barrier be that you would want and the suggestions that you want from them, the non-Black people? Because those are, you know.
What I would say is design thinking. You have to incorporate design thinking in everything you do. So design thinking is essentially a human-centered approach to problem solving. And what design thinking is instead of saying you know what the problem is, you have to learn to love the problem. And learning to love the problem is talking to those who are impacted by the problem, talking to the people who create the problem, all the stakeholders, everyone that's at the table, right? So before you even get to a solution to say, as a white organization, I think the Black community needs this, or even asking one person, you've got to do your due diligence to do like extensive research. It requires a lot of listening. It requires a lot of group-centered conversations. But the most important thing is you have to kind of eliminate your thinking process, because to be real, capitalism is capitalism, and it thrives on, if I can make more than you, then I'm better than you, you know? So I think from a business standpoint, you have to do some anti-yo training, some anti-oppressive training, because capitalism itself is oppressive. Let's just call it what it is. So there's got to be some anti-yo training that's done. Then secondly, you have to implement some design thinking into the work that you do. And then the very last thing I'd say is eradicate the mentality of, I think it's more important of doing things with people than doing it for people. I don't need you to do anything for me because you don't know my plight. I need you to do it with me. So I need to be a part of the process from the very beginning. Once you start creating your solution, I need to be a part of that process from the beginning and not brought into the tail end when you think it's going to be a benefit to me. So that'd be my last point.
Thank you so much, young brother, for being here. And we will let you go. And we will continue on. Thank you so much. And then we'll talk to you soon. All right.
Love and light. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
I want to continue in the vein with Ebony, Stephen, and Rich Kid. Ebony, obviously, 25 years of Honey Jam, but Rich, Stephen, what is the trickle down effect, and Jamelia too, of recruiting? Like, so Jamelia is the only Black publicist. Rich, like, what could you create if you, like, in terms of trickle? Where are you going? In terms of trickle down.
Always got to press the light. The light is automatic turn off on me. So.
Okay. In terms of trickle down effect, Stephen, you being present, what does, like, I'm a direct descendant of Ebony, even though she doesn't know of Each One Teach One. What is it that you guys can create in your path? And what would the effect be for the music industry in terms of the trickle down effect for young Black professionals if these corporations were to hire?
Well, I think one thing, I know, Click, you touched on it before, is there is often a lot of funding for youth, which often means up until 18, and depending on which grants are, sometimes they consider youth up until 35. But often a lot of stuff is more focused on young people at risk under the age of 18. And I'll be honest, the biggest, you know, you're getting out of high school, you're learning. Most people aren't becoming professional, but they're in the process of preparing some skills to be that. But then when you really turn 18 or 19 or 21, that's when your life career options get chosen. And I think that's a major part of where people need support, because then they don't have access to all those things that they might have had when they were younger. And, you know, then you should be in college, university, and the rest of that. And they're not able to go to these schools to learn the trade that they want, which is music, whether it be rapping or producing or any other part of the industry, you know? So it's that. And also teaching young people, and a lot of them, when they come to me, it's what do they want to be? I want to be a rapper. I want to be a producer. There aren't that many that come and say they want to be a publicist. Like someone said it before, nobody even knows about these parts of the job before. And one of the first things I always teach kids that come and do a studio session, I say, you're going to come in, you're the rapper, you're probably going to pay for the studio, you're going to do this and that. Who are you paying? You're paying the engineer. Guaranteed, every time any record was cut, that engineer probably got paid. The MC, all the rest of that, they have to wait if and when that comes. But there are parts of the industry where you get straight paid. That's your job. You go there and you're doing these parts of the job. And even just having engineers and, you know, studio, you know, people working, whatever part of the industry, also being Black, it gains access for us others to see that that's a possibility. So I think, again, placement in all these other different places in positions, especially of power, is important. Again, not just the bottom line, but moving up too.
And I want to reverse out the question. Rich, Jamelia, Ebony, what would exist or what would happen if you guys weren't present? If Jamelia, if you weren't the Black publicist at Sony, Rich, if you weren't there, how many, Ebony, I can't even speak to yours, how many people's lives you've impacted? What would have happened if you guys weren't there in terms of the trickle down? Like, I know you can't predict, but, you know.
I think within the Remix organization, you know, we have a lot of cool staff. A lot of our staff are alumni that grown through the program. Me, Ricky, Amber, a couple other people. But I think what I add to it, being, you know, the most visibly darkest person on the team, is like, you know, aside from me just knowing the music industry and being involved, is, you know, I have a connection with, you know, just I have a connection with certain youth, like just certain experiences, lived experiences of just, you know, living in the hood, you know, getting in trouble with police, and even to a point now where I can just talk, like, you know, sometimes I have to have meetings with police on for my neighborhood in terms of our ball court and stuff like that. So I think a lot of people dig my lived experience and just my way of just navigating in both spaces, just in like hood spaces and in corporate spaces. So I think I add that kind of sensibility to them. And I also look out for things that I don't think some of my counterparts, you know, like they're very sensitive and they try to look out for anything. But I think there's certain things that you know, involve Black youth or might concern Black youth more. If I wasn't here, I don't know if it'd be addressed as quickly or if it would be moved on as firmly, just because I know I have that kind of like personality where when I say things, like I'm very passionate about things and they don't take it to heart. They actually listen, and then certain things get implemented. So I think you need, like, you know, a program like Remix that's Black serving. If you don't have anybody Black in there, it's just, it falls apart. So, and then if you don't have the right Black person, like, not to say that, you know, not anybody Black could do this job, or you have to be Black to do it, but there's also that experience of just, you know, who we serve for at-risk youth. You know, coming from that background of, you know, obviously being in the program myself, it just gives me a better kind of perspective, and it gives me more, I guess, just more of a sense of how to handle things around here. So, you know, I think it was good that they're hiring me, and they're good that they're still paying me.
I think it's important for everybody watching as well. You said, you know, plain talk, bad manners. Not all skin folk are kinfolk, number one. But I think number two, I want everybody watching, especially, well, not especially the Black people, but everybody else, to understand that we're not homogenous either.
Of
so
course,
Rich
not a monolith.
Has, you know, Rich has experiences in the hood. I've never been in problems with the police. We are not homogenous as a group. So it's not just hood kids that need the help either. There are kids who are on their route to university that need the help, on the way to college that need the help, you know what I mean, who are not inside the education system that need the help. And we need that outreach into those communities as well. If you really genuinely say that you want to help, and if your excuse is that you don't know how to, then either you shouldn't have a job or you should go look for somebody to help you, right? I want to ask JAMELIA as well. Again, you're unfortunately the only corporate person here, but a lot of the corporations are creating D&I, diversity and inclusion panels and boards and stuff. Do you think that this makes companies complacent? And do you think that they're just checking off boxes, or do you think that genuine progress is being made in this regard?
I think it just depends. I think it's a waiting game. I think we'll know the answer to that in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, when we see, are those hires still at your company? Were they contract for 6 months? Were they contract for a year? You know, what have you, was it just one person? Was it a program that you created? Like, what's going to be done? As someone had brought up earlier in this panel, like, you know, it's the hot thing to do right now, hire somebody, but fill your openings with, you know, people of color, with Black people. Great, right? If that's where it stops, then yeah, so you're checking a box. You just did it to do it. You did it to say, look at me. You know, I too had training. I too had Black people on my team. But if those people don't have voting power, if those people don't have seats at the executive board, if those people aren't, you know, making changes, if they don't have the opportunity to have their voices heard and to actually see something tangible change as opposed to just a title, then, you know, then we know who's really about it and who was just about, you know, a Black square, and who was just about the look. And there's no way to see it or to know what that looks like on the offset, because everything kind of looks the same. And we've been told the same lies and the same pacifying answers over and over again, year after year. We're not idiots, we're not dumb. And that's not enough for us. So you need to put your money where your mouth is, literally and figuratively. So we'll see. Everyone has something to say, and a contribution, we'll see.
Yep. And so, you know, we're going to close this out, but I want to expand on a concept that you just kind of pointed at, which is that we need to start to look at, or corporations need to start to look at, every single aspect of their organization through a Black focused lens. Rich, what's your, Rich Kid, what is your non-European name?
Kwabna.
Okay. Could you get a job with that name, my friend?
Well, probably not.
So we need to look at, you know, everything from a non-European lens, and start to look at things through different perspectives, you know, and see what the impact of inclusivity could be in changing thinking patterns in these organizations, you know, and changing the experience for Black working professionals. So I want to conclude by asking each one of you, again, your final thoughts on what the biggest barrier to the creation of the next generation is, and what you would like to see happen, your suggestions, and you're speaking to the people who have the power to do it. Rich Kid, you want to go first?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest barriers, like, you know, one of the many things that we explained today is just investment from the people that are in especially in my field, like the people that are seen as the media, that are seen as, you know, those big record label companies or those organizations that take young Black artists and, you know, and exploit their art. I think those barriers of just access to information, education, those are still there. And until we get more Black people in powerful positions in those companies and organizations, things won't really change the way we want them to.
Steven, Ziploc.
Yeah, I mean, my three biggest things, I guess, is investment, inclusion, and understanding. Like, they have to invest in time and energy into our real issues that we put on the table, not, again, what they feel is a great solution or what is convenient to them. Inclusion, as in we are included in the discussion, and also we are a part of the team. If you want to say you're fully representing whoever or whomever, or even if you want to access, because again, you know, our Black dollars go through a lot of these same industries, and they're fine with us spending our money there, but then will you also hire some of our own people? And again, understanding is, and take the time to understand what our real issues are. It's not we're trying to make people feel guilty. We're not trying to pull one over. We're not trying to get things for free. We're trying to really balance out the same situation that we're all entering into at an even playing field, because it's not. So I think once those three things are given, it's a better look.
Okay. Jamelia?
A lot. I want to see, you know, coverage. I want to see us included in coverage. When you look at the Canadian media landscape, when you look at TV, when you look at radio, when you look at, you know, online coverage, blog sites, you know, they're covering the same people over and over again, and they're covering predominantly white artists. So I want to see, you know, the value of Black artists who, like, Black culture is what's cool. We tell you what's cool, and then y'all will do it. Like, it's not cool until we give you the stamp. So if you value in that way and understand the recognition and the value that we hold, then you need to then put the originators of where this content comes from on the TV, on the front page of the newspapers and in the magazines. So I want to see that. That would be, you know, important. And then also just people at the seat of the table, the people at these companies. It's very clear when you read some of the messaging and when you read articles and when you know, talk to staff and when you email people that you clearly don't have Black people working with you, or people in the room that would, you know, infer, you know, the decision that you guys are going to make, because nobody of color would ever think about it or look at this in this light or position it in this way. So it's very apparent. So it'd be lovely if we had more Black bodies in the building, and if, you know, these companies and organizations and, you know, if they value Black people as much as they value Blackness.
And understand that we are excellent, because growing up, and I know Jam doesn't agree with this, but growing up, we were always told that we have to work twice as hard to get half as far. We are excellent, and we are capable, and you need to start to look at us equally. Ebony. Actually, you know what? I want Ebony to close. So I'm going to go to Click, and then I'm going to let Ebony close, please.
I would like to encourage companies that are especially working in spaces where there is no Black people. If you are a booking agent, if you are a radio station, if you are a publicist, start thinking about, and not even start thinking, if you already know that there is not a lack of Black professionals around you, reach out to people that you know in the industry. There's, like, it's not hard to find us, myself and many others that work in the business, or reach out to places like Advance or the actual organizations that we're here today, be it Rich, Ebony, Zip. They all work with different people within the communities, and ask them, hey, is there somebody within your network that might be interested in this field? We'd love to have somebody come in and shadow my work or help me out and mentor me. I'm giving you exact dialogue that needs to be done and not just saying representation, because I feel like sometimes we just say this and it goes in one ear out the other, and I feel like I really need to spell it out for people for them to understand what needs to be done, because I kind of see this as a state of emergency. I've been working this business for almost 30 years and I haven't seen much change. So we're at a point where things actually drastically have to change, especially when Black music is at the top of the charts and we dictate that. And if we are the ones that creatively that dictating that but aren't reaping the benefits of it, that means that you're exploiting us. And that means that we don't have a seat at the table, like Jamelia was saying. So I think like what it really comes down to is you need to actually do the first step. You need to reach out to somebody and say, listen, I want to make a difference. And how am I going to do that? Well, I want to bring somebody in. If they don't know shit, I will teach them shit. And I will put them in the position and we'll make some money and we'll make it together and we'll all eat at the same table. And that's what I want to see.
Okay. And I don't usually interact when I'm moderating, but before we go to the Queen Ebony, I want to contribute as well. I would like these organizations and corporations to understand that what gets measured gets done. And so we need demographics in trying to improve opportunities for Black music executives in Canada. I would also like to say that when a Black person enters a company, these companies need to have a process by which they funnel like an orchestrated system for ongoing training, for mentorship, for community engagement, and development, so that people like Jamelia can get to the next level. And we will talk about this in the succession issue. But they need to pair them with executives who can help them direct their career trajectory, to answer questions that they don't have. Like, she has nobody to speak to. Rich was lucky, you know, Stephen Click, we were lucky to have Ebony's and Ivan Berry's and whomever else. She has nobody. She's the blueprint by herself. So somebody that they can, you know, like what has been done in terms of the women's movement in giving her someone that can help her guide her career trajectory, and she can ask questions and to who she can connect to on an ongoing basis, and for professional development and for resources and opportunities. And I think that diversity has to be a baseline. Like in every organization, this should be the minimum thought processes that we need to be diverse. It shouldn't even be a thing like a diversity and inclusion board or committee. You know, I think that equality and diversity are like probably within the top 5 issues that corporations and specifically the music industry in particular are facing. And so I'd like to see those things addressed. And so I would like to finally go to Ebony. Thank you so much. You've done so much for the community. What are your thoughts on the biggest barriers to the next generation, to creating the next generation of Black executives in the music industry in Canada?
I believe the biggest barrier is a lack of intention to do it. I'm a disciple of Malcolm X. So he talks a lot about whenever you see a problem and you point a finger at someone else that they need to do something about it, you need to look at yourself in the mirror and ask, what are you doing to be a part of the solution? There's nothing that could have stopped anyone from deciding this is a priority for us, and we are going to do 2 things. We are going to approach companies and talk with them about it happening, and we are going to work amongst ourselves towards ways in which it can happen. We have to be realistic. This is not going to be a top priority for anyone except us. These companies are dealing with COVID, what's going to happen with their staff. That's what's on their top agenda. If this is something that is important to us, then it's our responsibility to do what we have to do to make it happen. When I started Each One Teach One, I didn't have any money. I had a full-time job. I was doing all of these things. But another thing that Malcolm X says is that if you're going to shout and rah-rah about something and you aren't doing something yourself about to push it forward, shut up. sit down and let the other people step forward. Same thing with Honey Jam. I funded Honey Jam for 15 years, along with a full-time job, along with running the mentor program. There are many, and thousands of people have benefited. There are many things that each of us can do, and we should never feel defeated, and we should never feel like victims, and we should never feel like somebody else has to hand us our lives. Yes, government and corporations and everyone has responsibilities, but so do we, and we can and will make it through, and we have to help each other, and that's not happening enough. Don't be discouraged. Someone was talking about emailing someone twice and not hearing back from them. I've emailed some people for 7 years. 7 years. People are busy. If it's important to you, you can't assume it's going to be important to someone else. Why does it have to be important to them? It's important to you. Get your business handled, get done what you need to get done, and push and push and push. It's a difference between thinking, wouldn't it be nice if, and having true desire and passion for something to happen. And when you have true desire and passion, you make things happen. You create opportunities. You know, you speak with intention, and that intention turns into action, and then things flourish. So that's really the message that I want to say. And when you do your report about what you advise these companies to do, there should be another report about what we need to do, right? We have control over ourselves and our actions. We don't have control over what they do. So yeah, it's nice to send them the report. It's nice to give them suggestions about what to do. It's nice to check in with them and say, okay, so what will you promise to do and blah, blah, blah. But we don't just sit back in the meantime, right?
And definitely, I agree with you that that it is within our wheel well to create the change that we want to see in our own community. But I will also say that you are lucky or blessed, or you worked hard to have a job so that you could fund Honey Jam and some of these organizations that you have created, which have benefited us all. But some of these kids don't have those opportunities, and we are not the decision makers. For instance, you spoke earlier about the fact that you've been unsuccessful in receiving grant money from this recent round of monies, right? So they have also a responsibility, but we do as well. I do agree with you.
Yes. And I heard you say when I mentioned $2 million and you said, oh, $2 million is nothing. Oh Lord, I would be so happy for $2 million.
Oh no, I'm not decrying. I'm not saying that $2 million is nothing. I'm saying that $2 million is a great start.
Yeah, I'm happy for that start. Start me off with $2 million right now.
So what I was getting at is that there needs to be a Will and an Oprah and a Tyler Perry and whomever else, as opposed to, you know what I mean? So there are lots of organizations out here who have been doing work, and they deserve access as well. Advance is the beginning, and I, hopefully that you're a part of it as well. And with that said, I think we've come to the conclusion of episode 8, 2 to go. Episode 9 is a continuance of this path. We will talk about retention, how to get the existing Black professionals in the industry to the next level and to ownership. And we will be back same time, same bat channel next Tuesday at 6 p.m. And past episodes can be seen at www.bdrb.ca. Thank you to Ziploc, Rich Kid. I'm glad you wore a do-rag to their so-called awards. And next time you bring wheat things, bring for everybody. Click, my partner in crime, Jamelia Campbell, and of course, Queen Ebony. Thank you. This has been Breaking Down Racial Barriers, episode 8.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
I want to say thank you to you and to Click and to everyone who has spoken on these panels, everyone who has supported them. This is something that you guys decided that you were going to do, and you did it. And you found partners, and it's happening, and it's going to manifest other things. So we're very grateful to you for stepping up. It's a lot of your personal time, and appreciate it.
you very much. Thank you to all of you. This has been Breaking Down Racial Barriers. Sam, take us out.
Much love, y'all.
Patience.